to my dad's shop. I'm here in beautiful northeast Tennessee, just outside of Bristol, where my dad and Pam live, and we've got a great ride planned for today. There's been a few things on my mind, and I wanted to share some pretty personal stuff with my dad's bike. But before that, I want to tell you a little bit of story about him, so that some of the parts that I'm going to show you on his bike will make more sense. I've been asked several times since last year when we went on our chopper ride about some of the bikes and the paint and their meaning and that kind of thing, and so I want to tell you a little story. The story goes, and this is a true story, about my dad's life. Unfortunately, when my dad was a small boy, his parents divorced, and he kind of got lost in the mix of everything and went back and forth from home to home and found himself getting in a lot of trouble a lot of the time. By the time he was in the 6th grade, he had decided to give up school and no longer went to school anymore, so he dropped out. Things got progressively worse, and he started stealing cars, getting in big trouble. And at one point, his mom, my grandmother, came home with a man that she had met and introduced him for the first time to my dad and said, "Here's your new dad, I want you to meet your new dad." And first time my dad had ever met him. Well, it wasn't long after that, within minutes, that this new man started to abuse his sisters. And he was not going to have any part of that, so he went and beat the guy up. Beat this guy up, knocked him out, and things just got progressively worse from there. There came a point in his thinking that life was going pretty bad for him, that he needed to make a change, and so the thought came into his mind that maybe he should look into the military. And by this time he was 16 or 17 years old, and he went down to the recruiting center and started filling out the paperwork, and I don't know, I think he forged his mom's signature or something. I don't remember the exact story, but long story made short, he had to take some tests, and apparently he got called back in to take more tests, and he began to think that because he had quit school in the 6th grade that he was not smart enough or educated enough to pass these tests, so he tried even harder. This happened 2 or 3 times, and they kept calling him back to take more tests, and the last time they had 4 people there. It was my dad, a guy from Puerto Rico, a Hispanic guy, and I think a German fellow. None of them really spoke much English, and he thought, oh my goodness, the military is not even going to take me. And they did call him back, and apparently they said that in his testing that he had tested in the top, I think it's 1 or 2% or something of the military, and he could do anything he wanted in the military. Whatever he wanted to do, they would do it. And so he thought he wanted to be a fighter pilot. This is pre-Vietnam, so he went through all the steps and did all the things he needed to do to become a fighter pilot, and met with the flight commander for his last interview, and the flight commander said, "Looks like we have everything in order and we're ready to get you started. We just need one more piece of paperwork thing from you." And he says, "What is that?" And they said, "We need your high school diploma." And he said, "I don't have a high school diploma." And they said, "Well, you're not going to be a fighter pilot then." And he felt like he needed discipline really bad in his life, so he said, "I want you to give me the hardest thing you can possibly give me." And they said, "Well, that'll be the Marines. You go ahead and we'll get you started in the Marines." And he did. He got in the Marines, and he thank goodness for the military. It did a great deal for my dad's life, and it taught him discipline. It taught him that he needed to follow the rules. It taught him that he needed to go back to school, and as a result of this, he went back to school and got his GED and continued on, and Now he's a PhD anesthesiologist. So the amazing life, and this is just one of a lot of things about his life that is really interesting, how one could go from dropping out of school in the 6th grade to becoming a PhD physician is a pretty crazy story, but it's true, and there's a lot of really interesting things about his life. So the reason I bring this up first is because some of the things on this bike that I'm going to show you have a lot to do with his history and with his past. And so I'm going to take the camera, I'm going to show you one little mural. Oh, before I get to that though, I want to tell you the story. My dad has built a few bikes, and this was the last one that he was going to build, and he was really struggling with what he wanted to do for his paint. And some of you may have seen my bike. It's got a lot of custom, really custom artwork on it, done by a good friend of mine, Todd Kirby with TK Customs. He's an amazing, amazing artist. And so as my dad was struggling, trying to come up with some kind of a paint scheme or what he wanted, he just like had a mental block on it. And I had all these thoughts going on in my mind that if it were, you know, what I would do if it were, you know, if I were painting it for him, which I can't paint, but, and finally my dad agreed to let me choose what artwork was done on the bike without him even seeing it. And he would not be able to see it until he unpackaged it with the paint all completely done, so he had no chance to change it or impact it or whatever, and it came out absolutely beautiful. So this is part one. I'm going to show you one quick thing. The lighting is not real great. I'm going to do my best here, but I'm going to show you the first mural that is important with the story that I just told you, and then I'm going to start a new video with some of the other mural, okay? So let me see what I can do about moving this camera. Sorry for the shakiness, and I'm going to try to get some light from this LED thing he's got. And let me see if I can get down here where you can see it. Those of you that are in the military, it's a little dirty because we were out riding, but this is the Marine emblem. And on the lower right hand side there, you'll see it says MP. Kind of weird, isn't it, that a guy that was totally consumed by crime would become a military police officer in the Marines? But that's how he is, you know. When he decides to make a change, he goes 100%. And he was military police in the Marines. And right up here, he told me one day, and I memorized it when he told me, his Marine number, 1887778. And when he saw that, his jaw hit the floor. How anyone would know his Marine number. I memorized it when he told it to me, and I hurried and wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. And then Todd painted that in there, making this bike uniquely his with the Marine number there and Semper Fidelis. You guys are all familiar with that. But so one of those meaningful things that makes a bike unique and special is the connection of having something of his past that was so important and so critical in his life to make the changes that it did in his life are forever painted onto this bike, the last one that he ever built. So stay tuned, come back for the next video, and I'll show you some of the other mural and the special meaning that has in our life, okay?